Hello everybody, I am the Black Sigma, or you could just call me Eric, and it can't just be explained away by a simple observational error. Mr. Wright? In that instant, Emma really did see a broken knife. I assume, then, that you have some information about this other broken knife, so please feel free to enlighten us. The murder weapon was already broken prior to the murder. There's only one way. Here's the real murder weapon. The answer lies in the past. 2 years in the past. Right here inside this picture. This is a picture of the award ceremony. What is it, Mr. Edgeworth? It's the broken murder weapon. Notice the award Prosecutor Marshall is holding. That's a broken knife. As we earlier concluded, the knife in the drawing was not Joe Dark's knife. That being the case, the knife the witness saw was in all likelihood from this award. Order. Neil Marshall was awarded King of Prosecutors that day. As an award, he was given this broken shield and knife. When he chased after Joe Dark, he pulled out this knife. Being a prosecutor, he did not carry a pistol. This broken knife was the only weapon he had in this dangerous situation. But that can't be. Oh, and why not, Mr. Edgeworth? Because if the King of Prosecutors award knife was the murder weapon, then the murderer and the victim would be reversed. What do you mean? I mean, this man raising a knife would have been Prosecutor Neil Marshall. Oh. But the prosecutor was the one who actually died. That's true. What's going on here? It seems Mr. Wright has been a bit too eager to jump to conclusions. Hold it? Wait, I remember now. I remember everything. Witness? Mr. Edgeworth. What is it? Could you show me your evidence list again, please? His list? The one with that picture scribbled on the back? I knew it! This picture, I'm the one who drew it. What? You drew that? That's right. The list wasn't torn in half at the time I drew this picture. But the blue badger... All this time I've been trying so hard to forget. I must have locked this part away deep inside me. Perhaps it would be best if we added this to the witness's testimony. Would you please tell us what you've recalled, Ms. Skye? Yes, Your Honor. First the knife mix-up and now the blue badger? This should be interesting. So, when I saw that man raise his knife, I panicked and rushed toward both of them. I think I knocked away the man with the knife. Just then there was another flash of lightning, and that's when I saw the blue badger. He wasn't in the room, but I'm sure I saw his shadow. This is certainly most unusual. Try impossible. The chief of detectives hadn't even designed him until this year. I think you mean designed with an ED, Mr. Edgeworth? Yes, well, the defense may now begin its cross-examination. Stop! Please, don't pursue this any further. Lana? What's the meaning of this? Please remain seated in the defendant's chair. But you can't do this. I've already confessed to the crime. Why can't you just leave it at that? Chief Prosecutor Skye. We've already come this far. It's too late to turn back. Silence. The defense will now begin its cross-examination. Bailiff, please detain the defendant. It seems we're finally getting to the core of the matter. So, when I saw that man raise his knife, I panicked, rushed toward both of them. You think you knocked away the man with the knife? It all happened fast and you were in shock. You don't remember it clearly. She was almost killed before she was a witness to a murder take place. Little disorientation is only natural. Saw the man about to stab the other person, who I thought was Marshall. Knew I had to stop the man with the knife. What you did was very brave, young girl. Then what happened next? You saw the blue badger. You sure about this? Of course, see? I even drew a picture of him here. But it was the chief of detectives who thought up this hideous beast, and that was just this year. The blue badger didn't exist 2 years ago. This is all quite verifiable. I know it sounds strange. I was surprised too when I saw him at the police department. I had this nagging feeling that I'd seen him before somewhere. Now I finally remember. Oh, brother. Tell us, where in the room did you see him dancing? He wasn't in the room, but I'm sure I saw his shadow. His shadow? So you mean you didn't actually see his face with its winning smile and all? That's right, but I still remember it. He had 3 creepy horns. This is pointless. That thing couldn't have possibly existed 2 years ago. The witness must be mistaken. That may well be. But what's important is what caused her to think she saw what she did. Oh, and I suppose you have an explanation. If so, by all means, please tell us what this shadow really was. What was it Emma saw when that lightning flashed? Who is this blue badger, really? I just might know. Hadn't even been dreamt up when Emma drew this, and she's certain she saw its shadow. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the defense's belief that on that fateful day 2 years ago, there indeed was something that looked similar to the blue badger. Something that is now sitting in this very room. Mr. Wright. In this room? Very well, Mr. Wright. What is it that the witness saw in this instant? Please show us this mysterious blue badger look-alike. Well, Your Honor, this was, of course, part of the SL9 incident. She saw something with 3 horns, with bulbed tips. I think this mysterious blue badger was in fact this. But that's... what exactly is that? I believe it's some sort of jar. But Mr. Wright, that doesn't look anything like the blue badger. Indeed it doesn't. As it stands now, it's just a plain jar. However, what if we were to change our viewpoint? Our viewpoint? I've got to show them the correct angle to look at this. Quite simply, flipped upside down. Looks pretty blue badger-esque to me. It's a little exaggerated, but... that's not quite right. I've got to make it look more correct. Yep, okay. I need to add a little bit of, verticality to it. Is that any better? come on. That was a lot closer than what I had to begin with. That's the angle I've had it at, like 3 times in a row. Just ever so slightly off. Okay. Well, is this a miracle or what? No one can possibly deny this jar's resemblance to the blue badger from this specific angle. No, it can't be. You really had to get very picky about that angle. Because I definitely showed it from the bottom viewpoint, tilting neck towards to make the top point, but the defense has proven its claim. This mysterious blue badger witnessed on the day of the crime was actually this. Although we all enjoyed Mr. Wright's dramatic performance, one question remains. What's your point? What do you mean? So that badger thing was actually just a jar. That doesn't change anything. I'm afraid that's where you're wrong, Mr. Edgeworth. You see, this changes everything. Indeed. Very well then, please tell us. What's different now that we know the witness saw this jar? I could say the murderer. Pull out the Gant evidence. The murder weapon won't have changed, we discovered that was wrong already. However, there's the location. Because it was by Lana's desk that the murder occurred. However, the jar is depicted in a photo as being on the right side of the room, near the suit of armor. The location. Allow me to take these in turn. At the moment of the murder, the witness saw this jar. At a very specific angle, might I add, Mr. Wright. Yes, well, knowing this, where could she have seen this jar? Where? The location of the jar is shown in a picture taken on the day of the crime. It's on a shelf in the office of Damon Gant. But the body was found lying near Lana Sky's desk. The witness testified so herself. Yes, and it is these two facts that reveal what actually transpired. You see, the struggle between Dark and Marshall did not take place in Lana Sky's office. It happened on the other side of the room, in Chief Gant's office. Are you implying the murderer moved the victim's body from Damon Gant's office to Lana Sky's office? Yes. Why would he do that? There's no reason. Exactly. If there wasn't a reason, he wouldn't have gone through the trouble. The only logical conclusion is that there was a reason. Do you know what that reason was, Mr. Wright? Finally figured it out. So this is why Lana tried to stop the trial. It's too late to quit now, though. Please recall the witness's testimony. She said she knocked away the man who was holding the knife. In the next instant, the jar was hit and flew through the air. Now tell me, what could have sent the jar flying? That would have to have been the impact the man made when he was knocked into the wall. Ladies and gentlemen, may I draw your attention to this picture once more. If the man was knocked in the direction of the shelf the jar was sitting on, what would he have hit? The suit of armor, holding a very sharp and dangerous looking sword. Yes. And since the man who was knocked into the armor was carrying a broken knife, he would have had to have been Neil Marshall, wielding the King of Prosecutors trophy. No, Mr. Wright, you can't be thinking. Yes, there is another possibility of what actually transpired in that room. Another possibility? Of course, the perpetrator would have had no idea, but nevertheless... I don't know if I can go through with this. Mr. Wright, what's the matter? If events took place as the defense theorizes, then the outcome is obvious. In that moment, assuming the man Emma Skye knocked away was actually Prosecutor Neil Marshall, she would have killed him. You mean Mr. Marshall died because of me? No! I never imagined her testimony would lead to this. That's why Lana wanted us not to investigate this. Because we'd arrive at the conclusion that her sister was guilty. She was doing it to protect Emma. But I don't think we've reached the truth of this matter yet. So it was the witness who took the victim's life, and then proved so with her own testimony. This is unprecedented. What are you saying? I'm sorry, Ms. Skye, but given the circumstances, Joe Dark murdered Prosecutor Marshall. How can you think it was Emma? How dare you try and pin the crime on her? Imagine that coming from you. If you recall, it was you who admitted to forging evidence 2 years ago. The reason you moved Prosecutor Marshall's body was to keep anyone else from finding out about what Emma did, wasn't it? I assure you, Mr. Edgeworth, I have no idea what you're talking about. If you hope to have anyone believe your insane allegations, I'm afraid you're going to have proof. Tell me, do you have any conclusive evidence that proves my sister killed Neil Marshall? Evidence? I'm willing to bet you don't. Yes, it certainly would be difficult to prove with this with evidence. If we don't have evidence, then we'll have to rely on testimony. I'm afraid that won't work in this case. Both parties involved in the incident are dead. Certainly can't get dead people to testify. This has all been a wild goose chase from the beginning. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Touché, Miss Skye. Of course, that only leaves us with one possibility. You mean there's still another possibility? What do you mean, Mr. Edgeworth? I mean the possibility that the victim has left us a message. For better or worse, Mr. Marshall did not die instantly. He may have left behind the name of the person who took his life. In one manner or another. That's impossible. Well, Mr. Wright, this is the only possibility left to you. A message from the deceased. Does such a message exist? The real murderer's name that the victim may have left behind is in the evidence. This message from the deceased is already in our possession. Mr. Wright, will you stop at nothing to prove my sister a murderer? Tisk, tisk, tisk. Do not be mistaken, Miss Skye. Our purpose is not to accuse Emma of any crime. There is only one thing we seek, the truth. No matter how painful it may be. Now then, Mr. Wright, please show us the piece of evidence that conveys a message from the deceased. I never checked the back of this cloth. Okay, it's nothing. It could be the piece of cloth with Emma's prints on it, but more likely, if the victim was leaving a message, it's whatever he started drawing on this jar. This is the message left by the deceased. This is that blue badger from before, right? Oh, is he just going to speak the killer's name? If that thing could, I'm sure it would. Looks like everyone's forgotten this is just a jar. A message was left here on the surface of this jar. What do you mean? If you look closely, you can see a faint trail of blood on this jar. It looks like someone wiped the blood away. Yes, but notice, for some reason, the blood on some of the fragments was not wiped away. Yes, there is a line here, drawn in blood. So what you're saying is these dots were once lines? Prosecutor Marshall did not die instantly. He used the few precious moments left to him to leave behind a message, one that someone apparently wiped away. But blood must have seeped into the jar where the lines changed directions. Precisely so. All we need to do is connect these points, and the victim's message will become apparent. No! Mr. Wright, what kind of message did the victim leave for us? Your Honor, I believe these bloodstains will reveal the answer. I've got to connect these dots to make letters. There's only one thing the victim would have written, given the circumstances. His murderer's name. And the most logical thing for that to be... I hate this. Your Honor, I present to you the name Emma. It's a defense attorney's duty to prove their client's innocence. That's why all I've been thinking about is saving Lana. After all my efforts, I never thought it'd turn out like this. Emma. So this is the final message Prosecutor Marshall left behind. I'm afraid so. Of all people, she may not have meant it, but in the end, the one who took the victim's life was Emma Skye. See you, Worthy. Can't say I didn't warn you. Chief Gant. Do you understand the implications of what you've done? What? What are you talking about? 2 years ago, Joe Dark was sentenced to death. He was convicted because of his final murder. I believe you were the prosecutor in the case, were you not? Ugh. Yes, Worthy. Because of you, an innocent man was sentenced to death. Not only that, but you used forged evidence to ensure his conviction. Ugh! But Joe Dark really was a serial murderer. That's undeniable. I'm afraid that's not important. Didn't you know? We aren't defenders of justice. What? We're merely keepers of the law. Sentencing a man to death is no light matter. Even if there wasn't any cover-up or evidence forgery, ultimately, the responsibility falls on the prosecutor in charge. Despite what anyone may say, this fact cannot be denied. What's going on at the prosecutor's office? They might have sentenced a man to death. How can he just stand there like it wasn't his fault? Order, 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 order! This is the second time I've had to suspend a trial because people are accusing Miles Edgeworth of murder. Gavel's pounding fell on deaf ears. Unable to settle the crowd, the judge declared a recess. Where this trial is headed, no one knows. I know exactly where it's going. Or at least, I believe my theory stands. Though Marshall believed that Emma Skye was his killer, I still believe it to be Damon Gant. Why would he have not followed after Marshall when both were interrogating Dark? Doesn't make sense. Not to mention, he was hiding the evidence that proved it was Emma. But maybe even the evidence he was hiding was forged. But enough postulation for now. I'll figure out the truth in the next episode. Bye.